Hey everyone, welcome back to AI.DivineInsights. Today, we're going deep, like really deep. Welcome back everybody for another deep dive. Today we're going to a pretty dramatic chapter in the New King James Version of the Bible.
Yeah.
Acts 26.
Acts 26.
The Apostle Paul
Right.
defending himself before King Agrippa.
It is a very dramatic chapter.
Have you ever been put on the spot
Oh, yeah.
to explain something that you just
Absolutely
believe in to somebody who might totally disagree?
It's an amazing chapter because it's more than just a legal defense.
Right.
Paul is essentially on trial for his conversion to Christianity.
Yeah.
And this is his opportunity to bear witness to his faith and explain the radical transformation.
So let's back up just a little bit.
Right.
Who are the major players here?
Well, you've got Paul, who was originally known as Saul.
Right.
He was a Pharisee, which was a group known for their strict adherence to Jewish law.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually started out persecuting early Christians.
Okay.
And then we have King Agrippa, who was a ruler with a very complex relationship to the Roman Empire. He was actually the great-grandson of Herod the Great and had a lot of political influence. So
Oh, wow.
think of it as navigating a delicate balance of power, much like international relations today.
Yeah, so we've got Paul, the former persecutor turned passionate believer,
Yes.
standing before King Agrippa, a powerful figure in a world dominated by both Roman and Jewish authority.
Right.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Paul starts his defense by saying he's happy to be on trial.
Well,
I don't know about you, but
yeah.
I wouldn't be thrilled.
I think that's what makes Paul's approach so brilliant.
Yeah.
He uses this seemingly odd statement to instantly grab the attention of his audience, particularly King Agrippa.
Right.
It's a bold way of saying, I'm not afraid because I truly believe in what I'm about to tell you.
Yeah.
And then he very strategically lays out his background,
Right.
his upbringing as a Pharisee, his deep knowledge of Jewish customs, all to build credibility
Yeah.
and show that he understands the very laws he's being accused of breaking.
Like he's saying, hey, I get where you're coming from. I was once in your shoes.
Right.
But then he shifts the focus.
He does.
He says he's not actually being judged for a crime, but for his belief in the promise made by God to our fathers.
Yeah.
A promise deeply rooted in Jewish tradition.
Right.
He even throws out this question: why should it be thought incredible by you that God raises the dead?
That's a great question.
What's he getting at?
It's a subtle but powerful move. He's setting the stage for his account of Jesus,
Right.
suggesting that if God can raise the dead, then surely the idea of a spiritual resurrection, a transformation like his own, isn't so far-fetched.
Now let's dive into that transformation.
Okay.
We know Paul was out there hunting down Christians.
Right.
But why? What was the big deal about these early followers of Jesus?
Well, to understand that, you have to remember the context.
Yep.
The Roman Empire was vast and diverse,
Mm.
and they generally tolerated different religions as long as they didn't threaten their authority.
Yeah.
But early Christians, with their belief that Jesus was the only way to salvation, were seen as disruptive.
Okay.
Imagine a world where everyone believed in multiple gods, then suddenly there's this group saying there's only one true God and you have to follow him.
Right.
That was a radical idea, and it challenged both the Roman and Jewish establishments.
So in Paul's mind at the time,
Yeah,
these Christians were troublemakers,
they were really disrupting faith.
defying the accepted norms, and then boom, he has this intense vision on the road to Damascus.
Oh, yeah.
This is a wild story. A light brighter than the sun blinds him,
Uh-huh.
and he hears a voice from the sky speaking in the ancient language of Hebrew.
Right.
It would be terrifying, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And that voice identifies itself as Jesus, the very person Paul has been persecuting.
Oh,
Talk about a plot twist.
I mean, that's a big one.
This isn't just some abstract spiritual experience. It's a direct encounter with the divine that completely upends Paul's worldview.
Right.
It makes you think about those moments in life where everything changes in an instant. Yeah.
Those experiences that force you to reevaluate your beliefs and priorities.
And this isn't just a vision. It comes with a mission.
Right.
This resurrected Jesus tells Paul to open people's eyes,
Uh-huh.
to turn them from darkness to light.
It's a powerful call to action.
Hmm.
What did that mean for Paul, practically speaking?
I mean,
It meant leaving behind everything he knew and embracing a radical new path.
yeah.
Remember, he was a respected Pharisee,
Right.
but now he's aligning himself with a group considered dangerous and heretical.
Totally.
He's essentially choosing the spiritual equivalent of exile.
Wow.
This brings us back to that earlier question about raising the dead.
Yeah.
Paul's conversion is a spiritual resurrection, a complete transformation of his identity and purpose.
So Paul, armed with this new mission,
Right.
immediately starts preaching.
He does.
And here's where things get really interesting. He doesn't just preach to fellow Jews.
Right.
He also reaches out to Gentiles, the non-Jewish people.
That's right. This was a huge departure from the traditional Jewish understanding of God's chosen people.
This was incredibly radical for the time.
Right.
It challenged the very foundation of Jewish exclusivity and had enormous consequences for the spread of Christianity.
So what you're saying is,
Paul was essentially saying that salvation was available to everyone regardless of their background.
okay,
It was a message of inclusivity that would ultimately shape the future of the Christian faith.
and he was drawing on his deep knowledge of Jewish scriptures to make his case.
Yes, he's skillfully weaving together his personal experience with established religious teachings,
Right.
creating a powerful narrative that resonates with both his Jewish and Gentile listeners.
But not everyone is buying it, are they?
Well,
I mean, Festus, the Roman governor, basically tells Paul he's gone mad.
it's a classic clash of worldviews.
Yeah.
Festus represents a purely secular perspective, unable to grasp the spiritual reality that Paul is describing.
Right.
He sees Paul's fervor as madness because it doesn't fit within his existing framework of understanding.
But then we get this fascinating reaction from King Agrippa.
Right.
You almost persuade me to become a Christian.
It seems even he can't entirely dismiss the power of Paul's conviction.
Even this powerful ruler, steeped in politics and worldly affairs, is intrigued by Paul's words.
Yeah, that single line speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Even though Paul is still in chains, his message has clearly had a profound impact on someone in a position of authority.
The chapter ends on a note of suspense. This man is doing nothing deserving of death or chains.
It leaves us wondering what will happen to Paul.
Right.
Will he be set free, or will he face further persecution for his beliefs?
It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, truth can have a powerful impact, even if it doesn't always lead to immediate vindication.
Right.
We'll be back in a moment to explore the broader implications of Paul's defense and what it can teach us about navigating our own beliefs in a complex world. Welcome back. It's amazing how much is packed into this story of Paul's defense, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
I mean, we've got political intrigue, clashing worldviews, this powerful message of transformation.
Right.
Makes you wonder what we can learn from it all, even today.
What strikes me is how relevant this story still is.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul's experience highlights the tensions between faith and reason, tradition, and change, individual conviction and societal pressures. These are themes that resonate across cultures and time periods.
It's like looking into a mirror, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, think about the times when you've encountered ideas that challenge your own beliefs.
Right.
Do you shut down?
Do you get defensive?
Do you get defensive? Or are you open to listening and trying to understand a different perspective?
That's the key, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Paul, despite his unwavering conviction, doesn't shy away from engaging with those who disagree with him.
Right.
He doesn't resort to insults or dismiss them as fools.
He doesn't.
Instead, he listens, he reasons,
Yeah.
and he tries to find common ground.
He even seems to have a sense of humor about the whole situation.
Yeah.
Remember when Festus accuses him of being mad?
Oh, yeah.
Paul calmly replies, "I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak the words of truth and reason."
It's a masterclass in communication, really.
Yeah.
He's adapting his approach to resonate with different audiences, whether it's the Roman governor, the Jewish king, or the crowd gathered to hear his defense.
Yeah.
He's not just preaching at them.
Right.
He's trying to connect with them on a human level.
And that brings us to the heart of his message.
Okay.
This idea of a spiritual resurrection, a transformation from darkness to light.
Uh-huh.
It's not just about believing in a certain set of doctrines.
Right.
It's about a fundamental change in how you see yourself and the world around you.
Imagine someone who's been lost in a dark forest, stumbling around feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
Then suddenly they see a light shining through the trees.
Wow.
That's the essence of what Paul is describing, this experience of coming into the light,
Right.
of finding a new path, a new way of being.
And it's not just an individual transformation, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah. Paul's conversion had ripple effects that spread throughout the Roman Empire and beyond.
Right.
It's incredible to think that one person's encounter with the divine could have such far-reaching consequences.
It makes you wonder about the potential we all have to create change, even if it starts with something small.
But let's be honest, it's not always easy to stand up for what you believe in,
Right.
especially when you're facing opposition or ridicule.
True.
Look at what happened to Paul. He was imprisoned, accused of treason, even labeled as mad.
Right.
It takes a certain kind of courage to stay true to your beliefs in the face of such adversity.
It does, and that brings us to another important aspect of this story.
Yep.
The question of whose perspective gets heard and whose gets dismissed.
Right.
Paul, as a Jewish follower of Jesus,
Yeah.
is caught between two powerful forces, the Roman authorities and the Jewish religious leaders.
Huh.
He's accused of blasphemy, of disrupting the social order,
Right.
all because his beliefs don't align with the dominant narratives of his time.
Makes you think about the ways in which power dynamics influence whose voices get amplified and whose get silenced.
It's a universal human experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all navigate these complex social structures where certain voices are privileged over others.
Yeah.
But Paul's story reminds us that even in the face of such power imbalances,
Right.
it's important to speak our truth,
Uh-huh.
to advocate for what we believe in, and to
Sure.
create space for marginalized voices to be heard.
He could have easily kept quiet, blended in, avoided all the trouble,
He could have.
but he felt this deep moral obligation to share his experience,
Yeah,
to challenge the status quo,
right.
and to offer a different way of seeing the world.
And that's a lesson that resonates as powerfully today as it did in the first century.
Absolutely.
In a world that often demands conformity and obedience,
Yeah.
Paul's story is a call to embrace our individuality,
Right.
to question assumptions, and to dare to be different.
To dare to be different.
It's about recognizing that truth can emerge from unexpected places, and that even the most marginalized voices can spark profound change.
It's a reminder that each of us has a story to tell, a perspective to offer, and a unique contribution to make to the world.
That's right.
And even if our voices shake, even if we face opposition,
Right.
the act of speaking up, of sharing our truth, can be a powerful force for good.
Absolutely. And sometimes those acts of courage
Yeah.
can inspire others to find their own voices, to challenge the status quo, and to create a more just and compassionate world.
We'll be back in a moment to explore some of the personal takeaways from Paul's story and how we can apply his example to our own lives. Welcome back to our deep dive into Acts 26. As we've been talking about Paul's story, I keep coming back to this idea of personal integrity.
Yeah, it really is striking how Paul embodies this idea of aligning your actions with your beliefs, even when it's hard, even when it costs you something.
Yeah, he could have taken the easy road, right?
Absolutely.
Stayed a Pharisee,
Right.
enjoyed a comfortable life, but
Yeah. But this encounter with Jesus fundamentally changed him, and he couldn't just go back to the way things were.
it's like this inner tension he's wrestling with
Right.
between what's safe and what's right.
Exactly.
And he knows that speaking out could really land him in some hot water,
Oh, yeah.
but he also feels this deep sense of responsibility
Uh-huh.
to share what he believes to be true. Have you ever felt that kind of pull?
Oh, I think it's a universal struggle.
Yeah.
Wanting to belong, to be accepted, that's a fundamental human need.
Right.
But sometimes true integrity requires us to step outside of our comfort zones,
Yeah.
to challenge the status quo, and to risk being seen as different or a troublemaker or even as a threat.
And that takes courage,
It does.
especially when you're up against these powerful figures who could just crush you.
Right.
It would have been so much easier for Paul to just go along with it, keep his head down,
Absolutely.
not rock the boat.
Right. But he chooses the path of authenticity, even though it leads him to prison.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes his story so powerful.
It is. It reminds us that living with integrity isn't always easy, but it's ultimately the most rewarding path.
Yeah. It's about being true to yourself, to your values, to how you see the world,
Exactly.
even when it's tough.
Even when it's really hard.
It's about having the courage to say no
Right.
when everyone else is saying yes,
Yeah.
to stand up for what's right even when it's not popular,
Absolutely.
to speak truth to power even when it makes you vulnerable.
And, it's not just about these grand gestures or heroic acts of defiance.
Yeah.
Living with integrity can also just show up in everyday moments.
Right.
Like being honest with people, keeping our promises, speaking up against injustice, even when it feels uncomfortable.
It's those little choices
It is.
that really add up.
It's about making choices that align with our deepest values, even when no one's watching, even when it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah. Because in the end, those choices shape who we are,
They do.
how we move through the world, the legacy that we leave behind.
And that's what's so powerful about Paul's story in Acts 26.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that every single one of us has that capacity to live a life of purpose, to make a difference, and to leave the world just a little bit better than we found it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Acts 26,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a question.
Okay.
What truth are you called to speak? What change are you meant to create?
Good question.
What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Acts 26.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Also, please like and subscribe to AI.DivineInsights for daily podcast episodes.
See you next time.